what's happening? I get asked a lot of questions about my 2003 Trailblazer, some things that people may have seen in the video that I've never actually, discussed. I put pretty much everything I do over on the forum that I hang out at, but I figure for you guys have been asking me a lot of the same questions, so I figure I'd just do like a FAQ of sorts. There's not really any script or rhyme or reason to this. I'm just gonna walk around with the camera, show different things, talk about different things, and hopefully your questions are answered, you know what I mean? So let's go for a walk around. As far as the audio system, still got everything from the SMD System of the Month. That was like December 2009 or something. Still got the Rockford tweeters up front in the OEM Bose locations. Still got the first ever, door pods I built for the 6.5s. That's in the front, also in the rear. Still got the C-pillar tweeters back here. The reason for building these pods, the magnet was touching the window, so I kind of wanted to space it out. We're unfortunate enough with our Trailblazers that we kind of have a weird contoured door panel, so kind of had to do something to give it a flat mating surface. Same thing here, has an irregular mount surface on here, so it kind of took making a pod to make it fit and be flush or whatever. My first vinyl wrap, I think, was on these. They've seen some weather. This truck's a daily driver. I drive it every day. It's got 186,000 miles on it. So if it's raining and I got to get out, well, the door panels are getting wet. That's just the way it is. The driver's side obviously took the most abuse. You can kind of see she kind of wrinkled up a little bit in some spots. There's really not much you can do about it. Still got the 3 Kicker L7s, still slamming hard after, damn, 8 years, I guess, has it been? Back in there, I don't know if I can't even see it in the camera, but still got the same 2 Rockford amps, T2001 BD and a T404 from back in the day, still rolling strong. Behind the trim panels, the Kinetic HC2000s were replaced with the same battery that's under the hood. I don't do any SPL competitions anymore. They consider my system to be a wall, even though it's like almost level just with the back seats. They say that because it goes over the window line in the back that it's a wall. It's loud enough for me. It blurs my vision when I drive. Everybody that's heard it's loved it. I don't need no validation from some fucking SPL meter. You know what I'm saying? The only thing I did change was the head unit, along with some electrical upgrades. I swapped out my Alpine radio after years and years of loyal service. I wanted to get something a little bit more modern, something that I could use with my phone or just a flash drive. So I went with the 80 PRS. Came with Bluetooth. I had originally planned on putting the Bluetooth mic up here behind this. I even bought the B pillar out of Envoy that had the automatic temp controls, but that plan didn't quite work out, so I'm kind of stuck with it. So I ended up putting the Bluetooth mic up here. It is something that you have to turn the heater off of vents to be able to have somebody hear you, or else it just sounds like a wind tunnel. But pretty cool. I'm pretty happy with that. I see a lot of cars come in here that they're just like two-sided taped and have wires hanging out. So far it's withstood the bass, so that's all good. As I was saying, I swapped out the deck for the 80 PRS. I'm pretty happy with it. I got the SMD DD1. I don't have it with me right here, but I'll probably throw up a picture, use that to dial everything in. I probably won't change anything unless something breaks, you know what I mean? I replaced the alternator with the Mechman. I think it's the hybrid G-Series 260. So far it's been awesome. No complaints there. Kind of have to switch to my cell phone. My camera really doesn't pick up bass that well. It's almost like it tries to protect itself from like loud noises or whatever. So we're going to throw in some of this Sife Morrison. There was another one on here that really fucking slapped. Maybe I'll just play that real quick. Yeah, I'll probably have to do this somewhere else. You're no fucking crybabies. Your rap music. I want to hear Patsy Cline. No offense to anybody that does not like rap music. Now you can tell on this that the bass boost is turned all the way down. You don't really need bass boost, I guess, when you're playing shit like this that's built for bass. You know what I'm saying? But if I was like listening to some old Wu-Tang on my iPod that wasn't really made for, you know, big ported boxes like this, and sometimes I do got to bump it up a little bit, especially if you're going to slap some Glaciers of Ice from back in the day. Anybody remember that shit? People ask me what was all this shit on my fuse block. Got a couple fuses here. 2 runs come off of this battery. They go into these fuse holders. They go out of the back of the fuse holders and they run to the back batteries. When it gets to the back batteries, there's fuse holders on the other side. That way the wire's protected on both ends. The 3rd fuse holder right here is to protect the wire that goes to the alternator. Kind of runs back there. It's kind of hard to see. Some people have said, oh, you don't need to do that. It's my truck. I'll do whatever the fuck I want. You know what I mean? I went with the dual terminal I-bars here because I do a lot of electrical testing. If you've watched this channel, you know what that's all about. So this gives me a spot to hook up either my power probe, multimeter, or whatever. Also, if I ever have to jump start another car, pretty easy to do it just like this. I use the piggyback bolt still under here for the side post for all the factory wiring, and then the wire from the positive stud of the alternator comes right up here to the positive of the battery. I have 1 ground going from the Rockford Fosgate battery post down to the frame. That's the guy stashed down there. I don't even know if you can see him. The other one goes to the casing of the alternator. That's the way MechMan recommends to do it. That's the way I've done it. I've had no trouble. People have asked me where I've grounded the rear batteries. On the inside frame rail on the passenger side. See them things covered in white lithium grease? Those are the grounds for the rear batteries. GM was nice enough to give us a grommet right here that does not apply to the trucks that have the rear HVAC system or if it has rear air ride. A lot of people ask me about stuff underneath the hood, like what's all this crap? I've got a ton of add-ons underneath the hood. Instead of having, you know, 6,000 wires run off of the fuse block, I just came up with my own fuse and relay panel. So I've got all the fuses for all the aftermarket stuff underneath the hood, all the relays for all the stuff underneath the hood. That's stuff like HIDs and my underhood lights. 2002 was the only year that the Trailblazers came with these underhood lights. I know as far as up to 07, they still have the cutout for getting this one in the driver's side installed. So getting this one in was no problem. I took it apart and modded it. It's got 16 5mm LEDs in it. And then I went ahead and I did the same thing on the passenger side. I had to mod this side of the hood to get it to go in there and then obviously run the wiring or whatever. It looks really awesome at night. I'm really happy with the way that turned out. I think that's been at least 3 or 4 years now and they're still holding up strong. Finally took the plunge, hacked off the resonator off of this thing. I'm not a welder or an exhaust fabricator, so pretty much just clamped it on. A lot of people ask me about the suspension in the back of this thing. This is clocking in right at about 32.5 on the back, right at about 32.5 in the front. There's no suspension mods that have been done to this truck. This is all basically from wood, woofers, batteries, and amps in the back that really give it that leveled out look. I don't think I've ever showed this on YouTube, but I have posted it on the forum. Had a problem with this breaking off every time my fatness drags across this seat. So I said fuck that, use some all thread to secure the panel in. And it's been over a year. I don't think I'll ever have to go back and replace that. Converted all the overhead lights to LEDs. I also added LEDs to the glove box, and I used the factory O2 switch to trigger it. That way I didn't have to do nothing crazy. Just another deal where 2002 Trailblazers got a little bit more stuff than 2003 and up. Really, I think the only thing I have left to do for the O2 conversion is to get the lights down there in the floor. You guys may have seen all this before. Every switch in here, from the doors to even this one that nobody ever sees, you know, they've all been taken apart, converted over to red. I also went back and redid the mirror signals. I got the clear lenses, and I got TX Blazers amber front, red rear LED inserts. So when you're looking at it from the front, it's amber. Looking at it from the rear, it's red. When I remodded my cluster, I changed the indicators to red from the match. Daytime pictures of the cluster and shit don't really do it justice. I've got a clip here where I was just taking a cruise at night and decided to whip out the camera, so probably splice that in here. These headlights, I made them myself. Took a lot of trial and error, and it ended up costing me a small fortune to do it. Well, it's time to do it. This headlight's going to get cut apart, and I'm going to replace this amber, orange, yellow, whatever you want to call it, reflector inside the headlight with clear. I've been studying my man Carlton, aka Black Shadows post for long enough, and it's time to do it. I'm also going to paint this part black to match the truck. Alright, so let's preheat the oven. So 250. So I got all the rubbers and everything off of this, all the bulbs out. There's nothing you can do about those connectors, but they'll be okay. So he's just chilling on the bottom rack in the oven. We're gonna let him cook for 10 minutes. We're getting close now. Got my welding gloves on, so we're ready. What?
What are you doing with my oven?
I'm cleaning my headlight.
You cooked it in my fucking oven.
That sucked. I ain't even gonna lie. And all I did was just put LEDs behind it. This is how bright the LEDs are up front. It's got LEDs in the side marker and then down there for the turn signals. Come to find out, not too long after I did that, that there's a company that actually makes them that looks like exactly like this with the black painted plastic inside instead of that ugly gray shit, and also with the clear bezels. So honestly, I would suggest just buying them instead of building them yourself, because that shit sucked. So still got the HID lows and HID fogs. The fogs are auto fogs, can turn off with the factory switch. All that's still working years later. DRL kill, still working years later. 6-beam, still working years later. Everything's still working years later. You noticing a trend here? Years later. My quad mod's still holding up great years later. My dual park circuit boards, these are the prototypes. They're still holding up great years later. Again, the only thing my boards do, they only light up the top and the middle in the dim circuit. I get asked sometimes just really vague, generic questions about the Trailblazer. I've had this thing for going on, I think, 8.5 years now. I bought it back in February of '07. It had like 20-some thousand miles on it when I bought it. 8.5 years later, she's sitting at 186,000 miles on it. I don't have any secrets for it. Pretty much just keep up on maintenance. If you find problems, address them. You know what I mean? I let a lot of things go that aren't really important, like the clunking over bumps. I let that go for a while. I was never an American car guy. I was never an SUV or truck guy. Back in the day, I was into Hondas, believe it or not. Not really into like the Fast and Furious bullshit. I was into Hondas because of their reliability, and they're pretty easy to work on. I learned a lot of the stuff that I know from, you know, my Hondas from back in the day. My favorite Honda that I had was like a 1989 Civic hatchback. At one point I had 215s in the back. I love that car. The shit slapped. Unfortunately, some old fuck turned out in front of me while I was doing like 55, and I destroyed that motherfucker and my car in the process. 10 years ago, I never would imagine that not only would I not have my Hondas anymore, but I'd have 3 big ass Chevy truck SUV things, you know what I'm saying? Crazy how shit works sometimes. I think that about wraps this up for the FAQ. If I did forget something, I'll probably just splice more footage in or whatever. I'm gonna try something here. I just put a new gas cap on my truck. I'm not gonna turn off the check engine light. I mean, I could right now, but I just wanna see if it's gonna turn off by itself. I've had an EVAP PO442, I think, for a long time now, so we'll see what happens. So we're sitting at 179,267. Service engine soon light just went off on its own. Sweet. Like I said, this was based off of you, the guys on YouTube who aren't part of the forum or whatever, based off of your questions, the questions that I get asked the most